I'd like to welcome everybody to the Motor Carrier Insurance Educational Foundation monthly truck stop webinar. These truck stops are presented the second Thursday of each month at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. These webinars are open to all members of the Motor Carrier Insurance Educational Foundation.
These webinars presented as industry updates for informational purposes only and do not qualify for state CE credit. If you're seeking state CE credit, the foundation does provide that to you as members of the foundation, 12 hours worth of CE in 3 4-hour segments every year. If you want to know more about our CE offerings, go to our website, mcief.org, or email us at mcief@mcief.org, and we'll give you the information concerning the programs that do qualify for CE. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat window. They'll be answered as time allows, or more often responded by email afterwards we're over. If you experience any problems here, please put in the chat window you're having auto problems and other problems, or call us at our number 800-741-4884. We will attempt to correct the problems as soon as possible. Today we have looking at short on capacity, 3-way fleets can use artificial intelligence IA to build drivers. Now, everybody should have had, because we sent out an article that Aaron Huff has produced from CCJ Digest. Aaron has been a part of our annual conference the last 3 or 4 years, and I track his information all the time with articles he wrote. In fact, he wrote one just today I looked at about another program involving this. He's one that we deal with, and we appreciate Aaron giving his time to go through this article. We thought it was worthwhile to talk about it besides just reading the article, because there are a few things there that I want to question about. With me today are Joe. You want to introduce us two here in case people don't know who we are? Hopefully they do.
Everybody knows Tommy Ruke, who is beside me and has just been speaking. Tommy was the founder of the Motor Carrier Insurance Education Foundation and has been teaching classes as long as there have been classes. I'm Joe Huddlemeyer. I am the CEO, COO of the Motor Carrier Insurance Foundation, and together we're going to be talking with Aaron Huff, Senior Editor of Commercial Carrier Journal.
Aaron, let's start a little bit. Welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I've been with Commercial Carrier Journal for 20 years, and mostly writing about technology and trends in fleet management. And I live in Utah, in Provo, Utah, where I'm from. But the company CCJ, we're part of Rand O'Reilly, who is based in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And like I said, like Tommy said, I've known about the MCIEF for 3 or 4 years now. It's always a pleasure to learn new things, and especially be introduced to insurance, which it's a big issue in today's market.
It is, Aaron. We appreciate your time. My kids were out in Salt Lake skiing in the old canyons, or the canyons over the holidays. And I know that I was snow skiing a couple of weeks ago. Do you snow ski?
I don't. I have kids, and it's hard to get us all out there. We've had a couple avalanches here in the last week or so.
I saw where people got killed on avalanche, did they not?
Yeah, they did.
That's real danger. I don't go out of bounds. And so if it's not groomed, I don't go it. If God wanted me to ski, he'd put a lift line up there, so I don't do it. Now, for you who know where this outline is, what we took is his article and put some things together, because there are other details we want. And the first thing he talked about is a hot freight market, and it's long term. Aaron, what do you see is happening with the freight market? And when we talk freight market, is the shippers demanding loads to be hauled, typically long haul trucking. Tell us a little thoughts about what you found in your research, and how long can we expect this very favorable market for truckers?
Sure. So from the economists that we've spoken to, they're saying that 2021 should most likely the rates should go up between 8 and 10% this year. There's always a risk of reverting into another freight recession like we had in 2019 and 2020 was an anomaly because of COVID, but then it really picked up in the third quarter, and the fourth quarter was just crazy. I mean, you look at the number of trucks ordered in the fourth quarter, there were 142,093 trucks ordered. That was second only to the third quarter of 2018 for the record. So right now we're in a really hot freight economy, and that's put a lot of pressure on fleets to raise driver wages to try to keep up. And the amount of raises is surprising. It's a lot of carriers have made major pay raises that last year, if you talk to them this time last year, they weren't even thinking about raising pay.
Yeah, when we're talking about rate, we're talking about the per mile that the trucker is hauling, and there's two rates set. There's the contract rate and the spot market, which is through brokers. And when Aaron compares rates, he's comparing those kind of things. So he's saying that the revenue per mile should go up in those percentages, right, Aaron? Is that what you're thinking? What they're thinking about?
Yes, revenue per mile, about 8 to 10%.
And obviously, there's more truck needs to spawn, which requires more drivers. And that gets us to the next slide, because that's what we're dealing with, drivers. As everybody knows, when it boils down, we insure motor carriers, but we insure motor carriers based on the drivers they hire to drive the vehicles. Joe, you spend a lot of time screening those drivers, do you know?
Yeah, that's the key point in underwriting risk. It's a key risk determinant, and anybody that doesn't look at drivers is hurting themselves.
And I know that we've got other reasons that a driver stays in turnover and all this, but when I listen to all these experts about drivers and how to keep drivers, Aaron, it always boils down to how much money they make per effort. I guess no matter what, that's all we have is selling ourselves time and how much they get paid for the time they have driving the truck. You're talking about 80,000 or more a year, and so I had to really put a question mark there. What are you seeing in drivers' pay?
Yeah, several fleets I've talked to recently, they see 80,000 as that starting salary that they have to hit to stay competitive. One carrier I spoke to recently pays by the hour. They pay an hourly rate of, I think it's $22, $23 an hour, but then they pay a lower rate for drivers when they are loading, unloading, and in their case, at tank washes. So really, the competition is about 80,000 a year now, and fleets are also offering the minimum pay guarantees. Some even are offering a straight up salary, So,
and also now they're paying the mirror's time and other things like that too, to pay them for the efforts they have waiting at the shipper's yard too. I understand.
Exactly. So it's pure supply and demand, and the demand is great, and the supply of drivers is not so great.
For you who are new to this, might realize that if we were talking 3 to 4 years ago, we'd be talking somewhere around 50 to 55,000. 8 or 9 years ago, we were talking about somewhere around 40,000. So yeah, this is, or less even. So this is double in that time frame in this thing. For you also, just as a reminder for retail agent, your insureds are increasing the driver's pay to keep them there. If you write their work comp policy, you need to prepare them for an audit, because this is going to end up costing them more money on a comp standpoint. And if you have not checked with your insurers who you're writing work comp and asked them, have they raised their driver pay recently? And if so, how much, to make an adjustment of that, you're going to get a surprise at audit time, because they're not going to think about this, because they got the same 10 drivers or 10 trucks that are being driven. So they don't understand that side in audit time. So I strongly recommend you getting with your insurers and find out if they're raising their rates, particularly if you're writing work comp, pay to the driver, particularly if they're writing work comp, to prepare them for the audit. That's a sign. The other thing I want to mention, Aaron, when we talked about driver pay increasing coming out of the recession in 2008, one of the things I always talked about is this didn't affect a financial burden on the driver, the motor carriers, as much as before, because fuel costs were also going down. And so they were paying less dollars for fuel, which gave them a little more cash to pay for drivers. But right this minute, fuel cost is up too. Is this going to be, even though the rate's up, is the rate going to be significant to cover the increased cost of fuel, drivers, and insurance, you think?
I think so. Most carriers, as you know, have their their fuel have a separate fuel surcharge, which is tied to, I think it's, well, I don't know, it's all different, but they typically have their loaded miles covered by the fuel surcharge. It's those unloaded miles, the deadhead miles, that really cost them when fuel goes up. So, but I think as under this new administration, I think you can expect diesel prices to go up. Some states like California and Oregon are going to increase. They don't call it a tax, but basically diesel will cost more, so they can help subsidize some of the cleaner fuels, the biodiesel fuels. So I think Oregon, the tax on diesel, they don't call it a tax, but I think it's supposed to be like 7 cents this year and go up to 20 cents in the next 3 or 4 years. So
yeah, I just want to make sure they can pay for it and keep it, because that brings to the next side that you put on your article. You talk about, less quality drivers for quantity, and this is just finding somebody to fill the seat because they got a load to haul. And are fleets willing to reduce their standards of quality just to fill the seats, Aaron? What are you finding out?
Well, no one I speak to says that they are going to lower their safety standards for drivers. That's just not something that they can do. For their insurance company, I'm sure wouldn't let them. And beyond that, that's just not an area they're willing to compromise. They may look at drivers who have less experience, but they're not going to allow. One of the interesting things is that some companies may be more flexible in, like, if a driver has had more than, let's say, 3 jobs in the last 5 years, or 5, whatever that number is, they may look at drivers who jump around a little bit more, but if they do that, then they run the risk of higher turnover. So
that's a concern for us, right, Joe, to find out if they have a need for drivers. What are they doing to retain or to get new drivers? Are they trying to expand the pool by allowing them more speeding tickets to past crashes, or, as Aaron just pointed out, more not stability, moving from one to other, as well as the pay part? So this is something that we might need to look at, Aaron, would you think, as we're dealing with our insurance, because clearly we want to keep the standards going up, not reduce them.
Yeah, good point.
And Aaron, one of the things that insurance companies have documented proof on is driver turnover leads to higher losses. Higher incidence of loss.
Right.
The fleets with stable drivers with very little turnover, where you've got the same driver running the same route, driving the same unit, they seem to be a whole lot more stable and less prone to an accident.
You did point out in your article, the last line we have on this slide 7 is the industry is moving toward self-driving trucks. Really?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. As I was writing this article, US Express announced a partnership with, or actually an investment in this company called Too Simple. We'll get to that in the next slide, but they're actually testing it out now. And other AV meaning autonomous vehicle technology providers I've spoken to, they say they see within the next 2 years they'll be able to have trucks platooning, from point A to point B, and so that will help prove the concept that it actually does work. And then from there, I think it'll be accelerated towards full level 5 autonomy. But that may actually be a decade or more away. But I think there will be trucks on the road platooning here in the next couple of years.
When he talks about platooning, he's basically talking about 2 trucks running together, of which only one of them will have a driver and another will track it, right, Aaron? Is that what? Or even if there's a second driver in the second truck, it'd be less experienced because it's being controlled by the other truck.
Yes, and yeah, that latter scenario would be more likely. The driver would be less experienced. In that case, you might get a driver who, as part of his training program, would do that. They could pay him a lower rate, and he would just be there if needed. But yeah, that platooning, that's probably the first step to more widespread AV adoption.
Yeah, I was at the vehicle the agency did a panel about 2 years ago in San Francisco, and I agree with you. There's too many dollars in this industry. We're familiar with True Simple, but also the other thing we're finding later is a lot of these technology companies are now aligning themselves with manufacturers to use the technology for driver assistance to autonomous vehicles with the manufacturers now, and those two are partnering together. You're seeing a lot of that, are you not, Aaron, too?
Yes. So what I found is motor carriers are speccing these advanced driver assistance systems, which would probably just include the collision mitigation, anti-rollover, and lane keeping at about a 50% rate. But increasingly, and I have some information here, in the United States, this isn't happening yet, but in Europe, the European Union, they're requiring that by starting in 2022, next year, that vehicles must have driver sensing cameras to obtain the full safety rating. And then by 2024, any vehicle that does not have a drowsy driver monitoring system cannot be registered. So, and then China, all vehicles built last year and this year have to have driver monitoring systems that would detect, seatbelt usage, drowsy driving, distracted driving, smoking, or phone usage. So other countries are being more aggressive than the United States, but I can see, in order for a vehicle to be considered level 3, it has to have a driver-facing camera, because if the driver is not paying attention or not engaged, they have to alert the driver, because the vehicle can drive itself, but only if the driver's paying attention. If it's not, then they'll have to give the driver alert. So yes, definitely technologies are becoming part of the OEM.
What Aaron is talking about is the 5 levels of autonomy, with the level 3 still has the driver, still has the control, but has all the technology there for the driver assistance. Level 4 is where the truck goes, but the driver's still in the cabin. Level 5, the driver's not there anymore, just to refer when he's talking about the level 3 that we deal with here. You got the next slide, you got this, explain this slide to us, because I looked at this and I just copied this True Simple you've done here, because of the future. So maybe we kind of alluded to this. Just let us know how the IA fits in this.
Yeah, so right now, obviously, AV trucks are not on the road, but the technology that will be used for these trucks is available. The driver sensing cameras, the following distance, the things, all these advanced driver assistance systems are now available. And so fleets, given the situation that they can't compromise on safety. They know autonomous vehicles are coming at some point. The technology is here today. Why not use what is available today to be as safe as possible? So these systems that can detect driver fatigue, driver drowsiness, if the system is available, and in some cases in the next year or two, it may be included in the vehicle from the factory, why not use these today? Why wait until autonomous vehicles are on the road when you have these technologies? So definitely.
So Joe and I, we say amen to that. Just so you understand how the slide here, we took this down. When it says, we're talking about drivers still in this thing, and what the driver can help them, how to make the driver, and this part of it with all this technology and all, it might allow us for a little less experienced driver because they have help. And so we're talking about here, the driver's still going to be the truck, and this technology is not to replace the driver, but to build more aid for the driver so that they have more help from distraction to stopping to look at their surroundings with cameras and that kind of stuff is what we're talking about here.
There's one more element there. If you can also use AI.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, also I was going to say, if you can use AI to help drivers be more productive, to get them more stops per route, or anything you can do to make them more efficient, I think that's another application for AI, not just safety. So
I thought that this idea of electronic log devices that we're talking about this, how AI, in this case, it's not really making the driver better, but there's always been some complication about those things, just like the old paper log, the driver has to do something. And you're saying some of this new EDL providers now do things automatically, so it's more of a default, and all the driver has to do is push a button versus having to go through the system. And you think this will make the driver's job a little easier?
Yeah, exactly. Like when you're typing an email in Google or something, it predicts what you're going to say next, right? So you just predicts what you want to say. So the same thing is happening in some ELDs. So if a driver right now, if they take a break, or if they are fueling or doing other activities, they have to make a note of that on their logs. And so the AI that is in some ELD systems will predict, based on their location, based on how long they've been driving or whatever, what that note will be, and then give them just a quick kind of fill in the blank type of solution where they don't have to take the time to type in stopping for fuel, or it'll just give them a one-click option based on the prediction.
So this is make the driver's job less frustrating and easier. Yes. To make them more focused on just being safe, not having to worry about all this technology. That was the point you put into this, was it not, Aaron?
Yes, I think so. And it helps the drivers. They like the technology more. It becomes more friendly to them. It's not something that is stopping them from earning more money. It's helping them be more efficient. And so they're
Aaron, is this more appealing to the younger drivers or to the over 55 set?
Oh, yeah, probably younger drivers. The older drivers, I mean, when technology is coming at you fast, it's hard to adjust, right? When you're older.
You already mentioned event recorders on the cameras. It's interesting that these other countries are requiring this, and we're wondering why it's not going to be here. We know why it might not be here because of our just quote independent stuff here. This Big Brother stuff is important. We point out that the event recorders do give us actually what happened. And in fact, one of the things that we did a webinar with Clay Matthews, who I think because of being programs with him earlier from us. But even the 360 cameras, so we look all the way around and see the whole thing is a way to hear. So these event recorders help. One of the things that happen with event recorders, though, Aaron, that we're finding is instead of just capturing the event, the 5 or 8 seconds before and after, they're monitoring the driver all the time, as you mentioned earlier, for distractions, following too close, and this kind of stuff, all now integrated in those cameras. That's something new, is it not?
Yes, yeah, definitely over the last year, as these providers have built up more data, especially with the driver-facing camera, they've been able to get their algorithms to a point where they can detect with, I think it's 95% accuracy. And that's really key, because if anytime you make a mistake, the driver is going to lose trust in the system. But when you have that level of accuracy, they're going to have a high level of confidence in that system and use it to their advantage. Know that it won't be perfect all the time, but most of the time you are exhibiting behavior that is risky. And also just the fact that more cameras are being used by fleets to exonerate drivers as opposed to punish them. In fact, you mentioned Jay Taylor. I'm speaking with him tomorrow about a case in Florida where a camera was used. Well, I can get into that detail. Look for that article to be coming out here in the next week. But it's pretty interesting how Florida is changing their laws because of cameras now.
Well, we'll put this point now. Everybody's listening to us. Jay Taylor's putting a panel together that Aaron will be on for the annual conference in October, addressing detail. And the one thing that we are going to address in Orlando is how this is affecting the court systems. And Jay Taylor's going to lead that discussion with us. And maybe he didn't return my call today, Aaron, yet because he's got something set up with you as part of it. I get this has got to be a sale job, because it's not Big Brother watching, it's things that help you. And because we all can be distracted, to give them an alert and not have a crash where they're going to hurt each other. The other thing you just mentioned, Aaron, that we always also bring up is if the driver does something wrong, it allows us to know it early on, so we handle the court case better. And actually that we can say actually is where we can say it does save us money, because even though it exonerates the drivers in some cases, a lot of times we pay a whole lot of court costs to get the exoneration and evidence. But if we know the driver did something wrong, we'll just start paying and not having all the Jay Taylor lawyers and an expert witness and all to do this. So that is the thing here. So what we're saying now is these systems are not Big Brother. They're not trying to penalize you. They're trying to help you be safe. And in case we all get distracted or we all get fatigued, and sometimes we don't know this, these cameras or this new AI, artificial intelligence, will help us give you a message so you don't hurt yourself. Is that what we're trying to do with this?
Yeah, I think so. I think the drivers' attitudes towards this technology has changed because everybody knows somebody now who's benefited from video, a driver, speaking of drivers. But as these new technologies are coming into play that detect distraction and fatigue, I'm not sure we're quite there yet with driver acceptance of that, but we're definitely a lot further ahead than we were a couple of years ago. Now that cameras have already been in the market and drivers see that they are benefiting them, not putting them at risk of losing their job, right? They're helping them keep their job.
The other thing you have on the next slide is now that a lot of remote learning and remote training, the other thing they can do is help the fleet managers, again, send the driver an alert if they see something wrong, but will give them coaching and let them be better. And this gets back to maybe helping the younger driver. What do you think, Joe?
Definitely. And I think it's probably going to be the way of the future with the need to, or we're seeing the push with the driver age to get lower. Insurance companies traditionally have said, if you're under 25, we don't want to insure you. Maybe we'll make an exception to 23. But now we're seeing a push where in order to get the drivers at a young age and to keep them on board, that there's a push toward even younger drivers.
And I think this is all that leading here. So now we have these videos that can use to enable remote and self-guide coaching. So what you're finding this, Aaron, was later when the trip is over, they can have some interaction with whoever supervising them in that fleet to show what they did right and what they did wrong. Is that the point that this coaching you're talking about here?
Yeah, so when these cameras first came out, in most cases, drivers would have to, the fleet manager would send them a message, hey, I need to talk to you. They'd have to pull over and, the fleet would have to walk through what went wrong, what they saw. And this may be the next day, or this may even be 2 days later, because by the time it took them to get around to it. But now more fleets are using driver apps, or it could just be the mobile communication system. But they're getting these videos of events to drivers within the same day. And for less egregious offenses, drivers can just watch that video, acknowledge and commit to improving, maybe make some notes or something. They can do that themselves. But then for the more serious violations, the fleet manager can still have a conversation with them, but things have just become much more efficient. There's a less delay in that conversation happening, and like I say, the less serious violations it's almost automated in a sense, because.
And I like to turn it on the positive part. This allows them, if they're safe drivers, to pay, give them a bonus or have a function of their pay. I was at a Truckload Carriers Association Orlando conference about 4 years ago or so, and this is before all these cameras, the new cameras and new events. But we had someone from Linux there and another competitor there, and we also had Dennis Dillon and a couple of truckers talk about how they're using it. And as you know, Aaron, in the old cameras, you had a red light and a green light. The red light was when you did something wrong, maybe even speeding. A green light is when you did everything right. And they say we're basing our some bonuses based on how long you drive within the green, or penalties of the red. And I think this is what we're talking to here, some way to measure them living within the regs, meaning speed limits, not distracting, this kind of stuff. That can be a very positive. And
yes.
And there's one thing that overcomes a lot of this, Aaron, and that's money. So if they say this will help, this is money. Even those commercials now for Allstate, Nationwide, and Progressive, where if you can save money by letting us see that you drive good and you save these dollars. This is what some of the fleets are moving to, is it not?
Yes, and that's probably the best way to increase engagement, right? Is to give them something that they can earn, something they can work towards, something they can like an incentive. Tie the data to an incentive program, and don't make it an annual program, but probably at minimum a quarterly program, or even a weekly or monthly program where they can see.
Just like everybody else, these drivers are very competitive, but we've heard of some systems now that basically give you a score. And
yes.
you know, and drivers are trying to beat the next guy with a good score. So I think that's an incentive also.
And, and that's a corollary. Before we pay them to go fast because we consider them good when they got to the location on time. Now what the motor carrier is adding with this AI stuff is not on time as much as did you drive safely to get there. And so this will be a way to incentivize and pay them for doing it safe versus just getting there quickly.
Yeah, like Joe was mentioning, that score, a lot of these systems will give them a score after every trip. So every time they turn off the ignition, that time that elapsed between, you know, start and stop, that can be measured, so they have instant feedback, and that score means something. It's usually, you know, out of 100 or something, but I mean, that competition can be a daily thing. So it's wonderful development.
You listed a lot of these third-party AI vendors in here, and I try to list them here. Can you just give us a little quick overview of what each one does and what they are? And then lastly, you know, talk about the return on investment. How do motor carriers look at that return on investment?
Okay, so just quickly, so pretty much all of these I've listed here have both telematics and video event recorders. And last year, believe it was September, Omnitracs acquired SmartDrive, which that's kind of that shows you how serious these companies are about having video as part of their solution these days. So they all do the same thing. Interestingly, Samsara just came out with these AI videos the fleets can now use for their facilities as well. They can detect if a driver is maybe going too fast on a forklift on a dock, and it's all in the same dashboard. You can manage both drivers and workers with these cameras.
As far as Aaron's PC as in CCJ Digest last week is talking about how now they can also manage their warehouse and their surroundings, which will help us for loading and unloading and this kind of stuff. With it not there those areas too, Aaron, because it has that benefit too.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. To see if and to help prevent theft after hours, make sure there's nobody there when after hours. As far as
when we talk about return on investment, this is kind of a passive return because it saves from having crashes and maybe saves insurance and stuff here. But one thing that you mentioned here, Aaron, is return on investment that I hadn't thought about until I read your article. It could be return on investment because it helps the driver stay with them longer and assist the driver. That's an added, you can't maybe put dollars there, but driver turnover is tough, and the more driver help with AI, hopefully the happier they're going, the safer they're going to be. And so that could also be factored in the return on investment, could it not be?
Oh, exactly. So if you can get drivers from who are the bottom performers to move up, I mean, any incremental improvement is ROI, whether it's better fuel mileage, you know, obviously safer drivers, but by giving them this data, any improvement is an ROI, and that improvement can happen. You know, drivers usually the drivers in the top are going to stay performing, but if you get those bottom performers up, which you can, you know, that's pretty immediate ROI.
And so that's something for agents, when you talk to your insurance about this technology, you need to bring that up too. That the long term, not only insurance premium, but you're going to help a driver, and more happier driver, more stable driver, more driver who's focused on their job, not all this extraneous stuff. You also mentioned, and we alluded to it a little earlier, the last part of this is optimizing the routes and workflow. How's that working in the points here, Aaron? So
the article, I mostly focused on how AI is being used for final mile and LTL routes, because those are the more complex routes. A truckload route is there's really not there's not a whole lot you can you know, basically if you're dispatched from point A to point B, you know how long that's going to take you. But for final mile and less than truckload, some of these complicated algorithms now can look at traffic patterns, look at you know, loading and unloading times, and you know, slot these deliveries, these pickups and deliveries together in such a way that drivers can maybe add another pickup or delivery stop on the route because of time savings. And those are pretty sophisticated algorithms but yet it makes it very simple for drivers. They see their workflow on an app. They see the order of stops, and it all comes through very cleanly, very simply for drivers.
So in this case, it helps the driver maximize their income because now you're helping them to know where to go and this stuff. This would also be very important for newer drivers who are not used to the same routes, the dedicated routes and all, would it not, Aaron, to also introduce someone? Because that's one of the fears that we find in drivers who have not been insured over a year, is that now their first 30, 60 days, they've got changed different territories, strange flow patterns, strange timing, and all that kind of stuff. And this will help in this area, particularly with a less than a truckload or courier business.
Yeah, and as drivers get more experience, they can start to make recommendations for those routing software too. They may have an area where they like to start in, because that may be where traffic is the best that time of day in the morning, and then so they can maybe choose their own starting where they start from, and then route the other stops around that. But yeah, like you say, just for new drivers, there's a lot to learn, and these can definitely help simplify the job starting out.
And you bring up one point. I assume all this stuff is also they welcome driver input to this kind of routing and all that would help them not only track the actual vehicle movement, also find out from the driver what the driver saw. That's a good thing too. This AI stuff allows it going both ways, does it not?
Yes, definitely does. Yeah, there's unlimited potential to make drivers more productive, more efficient, which like you've mentioned, it benefits drivers as well as the fleet. It can benefit retention as well.
Well, even simple things. I did this many years ago. The beer company, you put the first load off on the back of the truck, and just figuring those kind of things, particularly LTL stuff. And this kind of maximizes the routes and the time of day and things like that. So you then keep monitoring through all this analogy between the actual and how the plan's working. You see them making adjustments quickly on this area. Aaron, how prevalent is this in the marketplace today?
Oh, it's pretty prevalent. So even with a basic GPS system, you know how much time drivers spend at each stop. You know how much, and then you can compare that with the planned route and quickly do a planned versus actual comparison. It's very prevalent. That's kind of your basic. I would say it starts with being able to compare planned versus actual, and then on top of that, then you can start to get into more sophisticated AI learning algorithms. So you're doing planned versus actual, but the next level would be for the software to look at planned versus actual and then adjust the next day's routes based off those learnings.
And now with some of the flexibility and hours of service with the split sleeper deal, conflict or abilities in this would work out well to complement that, would it not? So they know when they need to take that extra 3 hours or 4 hours to wait, and or to document when there's adverse conditions, which allows them to drive 2 more hours. So I hadn't thought about this, but this AI can assist them in maximizing their hours of service because of some of the new flexibility in the program.
Yes, but I would caution that there's not a whole lot of fleets that are really giving drivers recommendations for how to use their hours of service, because it's especially if they have contractors, that's not something they can really tell them what to do. A lot of fleets just leave that up to drivers to when they want to take breaks. That's something that's kind of difficult to control, right? Because each driver may want to do things a little differently. Some may want to run more. What I was kind of
mentioning here is that they can alert them that there is a backup or the weather's bad, and so they can prepare before they actually hit that stop or that weather. And the second part is to be able to justify why they did it. You would have some records now available to give just in case they get audited.
That's a good point. Yeah, a lot of with these new split sleeper berth rules, from what I've seen with the data showing, is that drivers aren't changing a whole lot yet. That's going to take a while for them to work that into their routine, to take the split. They use a 3-7 split or 7-3 versus what they used to be doing 8-2. That may take a little while because that's pretty complex to change your behavior.
Aaron, you mentioned the word complex. That's what AI does, takes care of the complexity, does it not?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you can use this AI to at least give drivers a recommendation, or at least show them the different scenarios that they could consider, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, that's my point. That's what I'm saying. And we're getting near our time frame, and we appreciate your time here, Aaron, and we'll have you back at least at the annual conference. But I did put some stuff here today. We do need the driver demand is great. Do you buy into all these? What is the shortage, or what's the projection of the shortage of that stuff, Aaron? I know I'm not necessarily asking percentage or 100,000 or what that. It is a real thing, is it not?
Oh, absolutely. I think most companies will tell you they would gladly add more trucks today if they could just hire more drivers. I don't know what the ATA is saying the driver shortage is right now. I don't think they actually tracked it a whole lot last year because of everything else that was going on, the coronavirus. So I don't think they have
some fleets shut down, and some fleets they were running 24/7, depending on what they're calling. That would be tough to do that.
Yeah. So,
and so what we went with AI, you can make the driver more valuable, help them in that kind of stuff here. And Joe mentioned a couple times, he and I fight all the time. He says, but Tommy, this is how the new group wants it. And I say, I like to teach the other way, but we haven't had discussion yet today, putting these programs together here. Again, the demographics still say the drivers are getting older and older, is it not? In fact, I think wouldn't you think we lost a significant numbers of them with COVID, who was out or who was afraid, and also with the new drug clearinghouse is kind of putting some additional pressure on these older drivers?
Absolutely. The drug clearinghouse, I don't remember the numbers, but I believe it was, it took like maybe 10,000 drivers maybe out of the workforce.
I know it's not 55,000, but I don't know about that. But
it was more than 10.
Okay, but then it took them out, but then some of them completed the return to duty process. But yeah, I think maybe originally it did take like 40,000 or 50,000, and then some.
Well, that return to duty process gives Joe as an underwriter stand up. So how do you justify one that failed to come back? How are the fleets looking at younger drivers? I know that with the SMART Act and all that in Congress and all are talking about trying to do the 18-year-olds and this kind of stuff and using the military, which hasn't been a successful program. But are they looking at filling some of the gaps, trying to make it more attractive for younger drivers?
Yeah, I think all fleets are thinking about that. Some fleets that have their own training programs do have not interstate. Oh yeah. Well, anyway, some fleets do have their own training programs, do have routes that are just in the state that they reside, so they are able to take some younger drivers. But I don't know what there's some mixed opinions on that for younger drivers. I don't think there's an industry consensus to hire hire and train 18-year-old drivers.
I just remember when my kids were 18, I'm not sure whether I would want them being responsible for something that's valued at $100,000 plus.
Well, that could be a crazy thing on this. And we're finding, and Aaron, have you seen an effect with the driver training schools because of COVID not being able to graduate these drivers, even though the training can be questionable? At least they know what a truck is when they get through that process. Is this also backing up some of the newer drivers, or at least appealing to, or getting new drivers capable of driving the truck, or capable of getting a CDL? Let's just put that besides driving the truck.
Yes, I forgot the number, but I believe that schools were pretty much last year putting out about half as many drivers just because of social distancing limitations, and also the government licensing agencies were unable to process as many CDLs or to do the testing and all that. So yeah, that definitely contributed to the driver shortage. I probably need to get an update on that, see where it's at, but I know last year was
the whole thing. We in the insurance industry are very interested in this subject, again, because our corner underwriting is who's driving the truck. And these factors here and the stuff that you share with us today with AI doesn't make us comfortable with this, but at least it shows that if the motor carrier is spending the money with investment to assist the driver, to help them train and to keep them retraining here and make them more productive, then you might look at that motor carrier more favorable than the ones who are not doing this. I mean, and this is basically what this article was concerning, was it not, Aaron?
Yes, it was just looking at what are the factors. So starting with the assumption that the fleets are not really able to grow because of the driver shortage, what are they investing in, or what do they see as the best path forward? And knowing that autonomous vehicles are looming on the horizon, what can they do today to help build a better driver, to, if possible, get more productivity out of drivers, but most importantly, how can they make drivers safer and keep their best drivers, is what it really was looking at.
And I like the idea of more productivity, but what you brought is a different view than some people have productivity, because your productivity doesn't mean the driver going faster.
No,
which is a very pleasant view of this.
Yeah, correct.
Aaron, I've got a question, and I'm not asking you to. I know you don't forecast the future and you don't have a crystal ball, but we're seeing, just based on our discussion with the EU and China being a lot more aggressive with what they're requiring of new units. Do you see that rolling over to the US?
I do. Some of the suppliers who are supplying those technology do have products for the US. I would think so. I mean, especially if OEMs, everything's global these days. So if OEMs have to meet a standard in Europe, they would eventually have to produce vehicles here that have the same technologies, or at least being able to offer them at scale to the industry. So I've not heard anything as far as regulations are concerned that any regulations in the US that might mirror that of Europe or China. But when I heard that was pretty eye-opening to me. I didn't realize those countries were so aggressive on that front. But
well, two things. It's eye-opening to us too, but that's the testing grounds. And if they can then document that both driver productivity plus less crashes and a safer operation, it would almost be, Joe, that the insurance industry is going to make it mandatory if the government does not. I mean, that's just like now review cameras in our cars, or even that light behind on the back of the window was all things that were driven first by the manufacturer reducing crashes before the government finally made it mandated. I see this happen. Do you not, now that we got more data?
Well, that's the first time I've thought of it, but yes. I mean, that will definitely drive adoption. Absolutely.
Aaron, that's about all we had here today. You need to follow his lead. Again, we sent out his article to everybody. Share it with your other your people in your offices and all that. And Aaron, we look forward to you being a part of our annual conference. We thank you for being done virtually last year. This year, hopefully in Orlando, we can host you and go through the hospitality that I hope you think we're famous for in those areas. But we really appreciate all the information you have. The insurance industry needs to keep up with this stuff and then figure out how it helps them model who they write and how they approach things. And without you sharing this information, our members would not be as current. And we really, really appreciate you spending time with us today and giving us this information.
Well, thanks for the discussion format. I'm glad I didn't have to just present you.
Aaron, be safe, and thank you very much for being with us today.
Thanks, Aaron.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe.
If you all have any questions, let's email them to mcief.org, and we'll have Aaron answer them later.
Thank you.